Well, here we are, back with some NFL tier. Hold up there, Jacob. You got us. Take a step back there. All right. Anyway, here are my updated NHL predictions for this year. I did do this about a few months ago, and that was pre-free agency, and now we've had a lot of deals go down and a lot of signings, a lot of trades. So now I thought today would just be the perfect day to go ahead and make these predictions, updated predictions, right before the NHL season starts. The first preseason game is tonight, mind you, so definitely looking forward to that. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Anaheim. Anaheim is a team that is really mid. I mean, they're never horrible. I mean, they were a few years ago, but it seemed like they always get better every year, but they're always a bubble team. And I don't see any reason this year that anything would change. I feel like Anaheim's always going to be a bubble team. I feel like they're always going to be a bubble team if they do not make any bigger moves. They'll have a good shot at it next year, though. If a lot of good free agents are on the market, which there should be, and they have a lot of cap space, they could make some room for big deals, and they could improve there. But right now, I'm going to keep Anaheim at bubble. They're not the best team in the bubble, I don't think, so we'll get to those upcoming teams soon. We'll get to those upcoming teams soon. The Boston Bruins, oh boy, after a rough last season, things have just not gotten much better. They were not able to get big free agent signings, and their hashtag or quote-unquote biggest signing is only because it involved a lot of money. Tanner Jeannot, one of the worst, probably the worst contract I've ever seen. It's not good in Boston right now. I don't see a lot of things that's going to change my mind about him right now. So I think, I haven't put a rebuilding tier because I think rebuilding and horrible go in the same tier. That's what I'm going to do. So I think Boston's going to be just down there. I mean, I don't think Boston would improve that much. I feel like they're really down right now. Down at a deep hole. They've got really good players still, but it might be a rough ride for the Boston Bruins this season like last season. Moving on to the Buffalo Sabres. Okay, so the Buffalo's interesting. They always have pretty good expectations these past few years, but now everyone's turning on them and putting them low and, not much expectations now that they're always been the same way. A lot of people in past years, including myself, think Buffalo is going to make the playoffs, and it's not happened. This year, like I said, people are turning on them and, putting them probably last in the Atlantic Division. But something feels different this year. Something just feels like they're going to have finally something to break through. And I feel like they're not going to make the playoffs, but they're going to be a bubble team. Buffalo is not a horrible team, and I wouldn't be surprised if they are probably right out of the wild card spot. They are not horrible this year. I feel like they're going to have way more confidence this year. Like I said, not a lot of free agents to be signed and not a lot of trades. But Buffalo just seems like they might have a breakout year this year. They have some good young players still. They got to build up that confidence, build up the motivation. And I feel like Buffalo will definitely umph it up this year. So we'll just have to wait and find out. Now, the Calgary Flames. Oh, boy. Calgary, they are a very interesting team to talk about. I'll tell you, they're not horrible. They're a very mid team. They almost made the playoffs last year. They were tied with the St. Louis Blues in points, but the win column wasn't there for them. So, it's an interesting thing to go about with Calgary. I'll say they are the best team as the bubble team in my rankings so far. They aren't horrible, don't get me wrong, but I don't see much that can get them over that hump. And there's going to leave a lot of room for other Pacific Division teams. Upcoming in this video, I'll tell you, there's going to be some teams that might shock you that I've picked. A lot of these rankings are going to be kind of similar to my previous video because, there are not a lot of big things that happen this offseason. Not a lot of huge things yet. But, yeah, it's definitely not much changed. Not much to say about Calgary there. I think Jonathan Huberdeau's a horrible contract. Maybe they can move him to another team and maybe move Rasmus Anderson. I feel like they need to start working on that young core now. They've got some pretty good young players that are up on the rising. And if they utilize that and then get some young players out, maybe packages, and maybe trade those two players that I just mentioned, they could get something going. That's why I have Calgary right here at the bubble. Now with Carolina, oh boy, another heartbreaker. They're always good in the playoffs. They're always a good team. They can never get it to the Stanley Cup final, though. Will that change this year? I'm sorry, Carolina fans, but I still only have you as a playoff lock. I know you signed Nikolai Ehlers. That's a good signing. But I just don't see... I feel like one player ain't going to make too much of a difference, especially against another team, which you already know who I'm talking about. Another team you can't get over the hump ever. No other team can in the back in the league. So, I know you signed a really good player in the offseason. The best free agent on the market, in fact. But that does not give me enough confidence for your team to get over a hump. The Eastern Conference finals, I know that's going to give you some tragedy feelings, but yeah. So yeah. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and move on from Carolina. There's nothing much to talk about except they're a really good team. The playoff inconsistencies. Chicago Blackhawks. Okay, so they're interesting. They are interesting. They are definitely not a great team. I would say that. There's a lot of things that need to go right for them this year. And Connor Bedard, I don't know, man. He's an RFA this year. I don't know if he's going to return to Chicago if they have another horrible season this year. I feel like there's going to be some motivation for Chicago this year. Not much has changed yet. I feel like they might need to make some trades for good players. But, Chicago's not going to be horrible. I think they're going to be better than they have in the past few seasons. This is definitely going to be their best season they've had in the last few years. So, Chicago's not going to be horrible, but not going to be good at the same time. Chicago, I'm going to put them in the disappointing. Disappointing's a word usually used for a team that has high expectations, but I'm using disappointing as a word for dual terms. Disappointing could mean as a team that is disappointing, that, not having a great season. That's what I meant by that. And also that is expected to have a good season from other people, but I don't think so. So, we're putting Chicago right there. With the Colorado Avalanche now. Oh, boy. Colorado. Y'all. You got a good squad coming up. You need to utilize it. You still have one of the greatest squads in the NHL. You have Cale Makar. Fortunately for you, he is a pending free agent. Hopefully, y'all are going to be able to re-sign him. And if unfortunately it is last year, you're definitely going to have to make the most of it because he's the best NHL defenseman in the league right now. He might be one of the best. Not many people say it, but he could arguably be the best player in the NHL. I'm not going to go that far to say that. He is definitely top 10, though. But besides that, Colorado's just a good team. They are a good team overall. I feel they're not too horrible. But due to playoff inconsistencies the last few years, post-2022, when they beat my Tampa Bay Lightning in the Stanley Cup Final, I am still upset. But I've coped. All right. So, yeah. Despite that, Colorado's going to have to, utilized a lot of their weapons this year. They're going to have to make the most of it. So with that being said, I think Colorado overtops Carolina in the playoff lock tier. Colorado should be really good in the regular season. We are just going to have to see about that postseason success this year, if there is any. Now with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Whew. Columbus had a surprising year last year after the unfortunate death of Johnny Gaudreau. I feel really bad, and my prayers still. But like I said, Columbus did have a really big bounce back year. They were 2 points away, I think it was 2 points away, from making the playoffs right behind the Montreal Canadiens, and it would have been so cool to see Columbus make the playoffs last year. Unfortunately, we didn't see that. But it was a good sign of something. Columbus had not been good at all in the last few years before that. They looked like a really bad team. They were not organized at all. They didn't do anything. But now there's a lot of hope in Columbus, and especially with keeping, good players, underrated players, especially Kirill Marchenko, which I think he is like one of the most underrated NHL players in the league. You still got Zach Werenski. He's a great defenseman. Elvis Merzlikins, who had a great bounce back year last year, mind you. And another good young forwards, Kent Johnson. There's a lot of good hope in Columbus for the future. And I think Columbus really has to depend on young core this year. So with that being said, I'm going to put Columbus in the top of the bubble tier. I think they're one of the best bubble teams right now in the league. They're probably the best. They are really good. I think they're going to be just a tad bit better this year. I'm not completely sure if they are in the playoffs this year. I don't think they will be, but I think there's a lot of optimism to build on, and Columbus fans are going to be really happy for the uprising of their team. Moving on to the Dallas Stars. Oh boy, the Dallas Stars. Another heartbreaker. Lost to Edmonton for the second straight year in a row in the Western Conference Final. Lost 3 consecutive Western Conference Finals. Oh boy. Oh, they are always right there at the cup contender spot. Dallas is really good. They're a really good team, really good built team. They still have a lot of the good players. Rico Rantanen, he is definitely the best player on that team. Here's my concern is there might be some downward motivation of potentially losing Jason Robertson. There was a lot of trade rumors about him going to another team, and he's a really good player, and I feel like Dallas should utilize him. I don't feel like they should give him away. The reason, a lot of trade rumors are going on is because he had a poor playoff performance. Think about this. He was injured. And coming back from an injury, you're not going to be your best still. You're still trying to get used to the ice. And I feel like there were way too many rumors going on that Jason Robertson was going to get traded. And I feel like he shouldn't get traded. He's a great player, and Dallas should not trade him. You never know the league these days, but still, I just feel like that was kind of silly that there was potential consideration of trading him. But off that topic, like I said, Dallas still has a very good team. They have a really good, blockage wall behind them. They have a good goaltender, good defense. One of the best defenses, of course, in the league, in my opinion. But I know I've said this about Dallas a lot of years, and the past video, but I feel like Dallas will drop. I'm gonna put them as the best playoff lock team so far. But now with the recent 3 consecutive Western Conference Final losses and post to that video I made about the Jason Robertson rumors, there might be a decrease in motivation, and there might be a decrease of just playoff oomph. So that's why I'm putting them only in playoff lock right now. I feel like that's respectable for Dallas. Dallas is always going to be pretty good in my opinion. So we'll just have to see. Now coming on with the Detroit Red Wings. The Detroit Red Wings, oh boy. Disappointing, They're always predicted to have good years. They're always right there. They certainly... They have good... They have a good team. They have a good built team, especially around that core three. The Dylan Larkin, of course, Moritz Seider, and Lucas Raymond. I feel like them three players are really the building core to the Detroit Red Wings. They're just going to have to be a little more push to get into the playoffs, and I don't feel it's there. Detroit always has been right there with it, but, with the inconsistencies and the late season push for the playoffs that they always make, which is very similar to Buffalo, I don't feel like they're going to do it this year because nothing drastically has changed. Now, don't get me wrong, John Gibson is a good addition, but I feel like he is not too much better right now than Cam Talbot. That's why I'm putting Detroit right in the middle of the bubble teams. That is part one of my post-free agency NHL predictions, and I'll be back for part two in a little while.